was after the war, and people wanted to laugh.
He certainly did know what people were wanting at that time. We just wanted to laugh, actually. There was hundreds and hundreds of films out, very serious, all about the war. So his films were like a breath of fresh air.
I think the war made people more clingy to each other, you know, more appreciative of each other's company.
It still was tough. The kind of, the brave new world, the post-war, looking forward, the post-war boom certainly hadn't percolated as far as Salford. And as far as we were concerned, what we had been looking at before the war at the cinema suited us absolutely down to the ground in 1947. We weren't expecting any big changes, and our heroes, our comedy heroes at least, were still the good old gang.
It's a bad-tempered old bounder. We'd have been all right with the timekeeper. I thought he'd have played the game with us. You wouldn't have done that to the canteen manageress, you know. No, why not? Have you heard? Heard what? What, the canteen manager arrested him? Yes. I didn't know that. Well, he knew about it. Why didn't you tell me? I thought you knew. It's been going on for a long time. Would you believe it? I think it's a cinch. If we'd only known, look, we'll try once again. If we don't get it this time, we'll blackmail him. Now, quiet. Right. Leave those cars alone and come here. What do you want? I thought I told you to clear out once. Now, listen, as a shop steward, I've got a few words to say. Either we'll clock in or you'll clock out after we tell Mr. Smith what we know about you. Oh, yes. Know about me? What do you know about me? Well, tell him, Fanny. Shall I? Well, who won the first prize in the West Drive last week? The canteen manageress. And who reckoned our card out? You did. And what about the 4 pounds of butter you gave to Dick Barton for the cup-tied tickets? Yes, where did it come from? The canteen manageress. Now, get Dick Barton to get you out of that one. And what about the draw for the girls' cycle? Yes, who made the draw? He did. And who won it? The canteen manageress's daughter. And who's going to teach her how to ride the bicycle? Me. And another thing. Who was with the canteen manageress at the pictures the other night? Oh, well, I wasn't. Oh, yes, you was. We don't go back with our eyes shut. If you weren't with her, how is it you came out with her? And how is it you took her for a short trot through the cemetery? Have you no respect for the dead? Well, now, look here, boys. Let's stop all this nonsense. I'll square it up for you this time. But don't be late again. That's better. Now you're talking. Come on, lads. Come on. I'm ashamed of you. And so am I.
We went to the films and we stood at the back like one might stand here. And up came the captions and the start. And they started to laugh. And they laughed. And they laughed, and things that we didn't think was funny, they laughed at. And things that John thought was funny, they didn't laugh at, and this, that, the other. But the film got a good reception. And halfway through, we said, that'll be all right, and I will be all right with this one. Aye.
Major cinema circuits never booked Mancunian films. Instead, Blakeley developed a unique arrangement with the Northern Independent exhibitors. Some were on the company board of directors. A major influence was Barrow-in-Furness scrap metal dealer turned entertainment magnate Jimmy Brennan. Brennan also underwrote productions. Another key figure on the board, and in the films themselves, helped turn Dickinson Road into a little gold mine. Comedian Frank Randall. Barely regarded elsewhere, Randall was the living legend of northern stage and screen, while at home in Blackpool, he achieved the status of royalty.
Frank was a born comedian. He could be very naughty. And the naughtier he got, the more you laughed. And the more you laughed, the more he was encouraged to go worse. Till everybody was absolutely rolling in their eyes. People used to love Frank Randall. A lot of the stuff he did was northern in character. They sort of identified themselves with what Frank was doing.
I suppose the most important star of Johnny Blakeley's films was Frank Randall.
And Frank was never a star in the South because he didn't appeal to the Southerners, you said. Sent Frank below Birmingham and he was gone.
You'd be waiting for Frank Randall to come onto the set. He would be maybe an hour late. Everybody would be hanging around doing nothing, just waiting. And as soon as he walked onto the set, you get John Blake, he would turn around and say, right, break for lunch. And of course Frank would storm off in a bit of a paddy.
Hey! I'm not going to have a bath. I'm not going to come to Joe Dale. I'm doing now. I'm sick and fed up. I'm stopping where I am. I'm not going to Blackpool. I'll come in Susan time. That's what I'll do. I'll come before we get screwy first. I'll go to the warm-up and I'll eat it. I'm going back to bed. I'm through.
Frank Randall and George Formby were both born in Wigan, Randall in 1902 and Formby in 1904. And they were boyhood friends, they played together, and their careers then took very similar lines. Stage, music hall, rising to the top of the bill, and then transfer to films. But where Formby became a national star, Randall never did. Randall remained essentially a northern regional star. And I think the reason lies in the different personalities that the two artists projected. Formby was innocent, shy, gauche, accident-prone, the unquenchably optimistic little man who people could identify with. And his saucy little songs, while apparently a bit near the knuckle, are really no more than a child saying bum and knickers and thinking it's frightfully daring to do that. They're a little cocking of the snook at authority. Randall, on the other hand, was totally disreputable and subversive in the image that he put over.
Where's that bucket of water? Coming up, coming up, coming up! Oh, dear. I won't want that. Oh, help! Where are you?
He was lecherous, he was insubordinate, he was drunken. A friend of mine who saw him on the stage said, "Oh, Frank Randall, he was a dirty old man. He used to take his teeth out and throw them into the stalls." Well, that kind of thing can't be taken up by the mainstream film industry and made into a national image. And the thing that Randall did, and the reason he was popular with his own following, was that he emphasized those traits in the characters of ordinary people, which are generally suppressed.
Oh, I'm awfully sorry. Did I upset my hash on you?
You did?
By gum, I'll bet you're a bit of a hot un.
And why?
Well, you seem a grand bit of stuff.
I wouldn't call shyness one of your drawbacks.
Not likely. If you want anything in this world, you've got to grab it. Give us a kiss.
Don't be so ridiculous.
Go on, give us a kiss. There's nobody looking.
My goodness.
Cocktail, madam?
No, thank you.
You, sir?
Aye, I might as well. By gum, the little ones, aren't they? Good out. You better fetch them in pint pots next time, will you? They taste all right, too. Good out. Ah, thank you. I'll have that as a chaser. Yes, I never leave out if I can help it. Good out. Fetch some more, will you? Aye. By the way, mister, have you a bath in this joint?
Yes. We have 4 bathrooms, sir.
Nay, I don't want 4. One's plenty for me. I'm itching for a bath. Get me a bath ready, will you?
Yes.
And put some water in it.
Yes.
Well, you can't imagine this being a respectable image that could be purveyed in feature films, or indeed later on even in television. Now, dear old George, on the other hand, George Formby, was basically just an overgrown urchin. And he used to go around with his little catchphrases, "Ooh, mother," and "Aha, never touch me." And so it was very childlike and innocent, whereas Randall really was subversive. He was an anti-hero. But what's ironic is, and evidence about this has recently come to light, Randall became in time more popular even than Formby in the north of England. A researcher at Manchester Polytechnic, Julian Poole, has turned up the attendance figures for one Macclesfield cinema for the 1940s. And these figures do seem to me to be representative of the north as a whole. And what he's found is that in 1942, Randall's film Somewhere in Camp attracted more people than any other film, British or American, with the single exception of Mrs. Miniver. And in 1943, Somewhere on Leave attracted more people than any other single film apart from Holiday Inn. And I think this is a lot to do with the war. People wanted to laugh during the war, and they also wanted to laugh in a way which punctured authority. A lot of people are in the services, a lot of people are having to be subject to orders and authority and discipline. And here was Randall kicking it all over. And it was a marvellous escape valve for people, and I think that's what they valued Randall for.
What were you in the Your life.
Who, me?
Yes, you.
Oh, do you mean when I was working for a living?
Yes, we were working.
Oh, I used to train performing fleas.
Performing fleas? Ha! We had to sketch for a living, eh?
Don't be a twillip.
I beg your pardon?
Oh, sorry, sir. Have you ever seen a performing flea?
No.
Oh, lend me a flea, will you?
Oh, be quiet.
Do you know, it took me 3 months to train 2 performing fleas to do the splits on a circular saw.
Well, no wonder you look tired. Where do you come from?
You're damned inquisitive, aren't you?
You know who... Beg your pardon, sir.
Well, as a matter of fact, the stork brought me. Well, tell the stork to take you back. You shut your gob.
Yes, you be quiet.
I'll tell him.
Do you know that you're talking...
Oh, I do beg your pardon, sir. As a matter of fact, where do you come from?
Well, if you must know, I come from cows.
Maybe you look like it, too. Silence. Do you know who you're talking to? I'm talking to the engineer, not the oil rag.
And if you take somebody like Frank Randall, who was, you know, an anarchist, really, in comedy. I mean, he was always fighting authority, whether it was on the stage or in films, and beating it. And there was this idiot who could beat authority. And I'm sure that really the audiences did identify very much with that. You know, if he can do it, we've got a chance.
What? I do think my friend, Dr. Livingstone is correct.
And I agree with him.
Well, I'd certainly like to see those modern methods. In that case, stand aside, please. Thank you. Well, first of all, good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, Mr. Randall.
There you are. Politeness for a start, you see. Now, black sheep.
I'm ready, boys.
You see, even know that, you see. Now then, gentlemen, at the word of command, 1, 2, just place your left toe forward in like manner, like that, you see. Now, go back to where you were. Now, all together, 1, 2. Jump, 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 jump. Off we go.
I always remember my father's definition of a great comic. He said a great comic is not a man who says funny things. He's a man who says things funny. And I think the northern comic said things funny. I think the basic difference was that the southern comic was clever and would tell you how he beat someone, how he put one over on them. Whereas the northern comic would tell you about all the terrible things that happened to him. This, of course, meant that the northern comic got a lot of sympathy from the audience. The other thing, I think, is that, in general, they were funny men, the northern comics, rather than being witty or clever.
Quiet. If you wake the wife to send for a copper and none of us all locked up.
I'm loyal.
Sit down. Let's have a drink.
Oh,
Is he spilling it? Yeah, I know you. I've never met you somewhere before. Were you in the 8th Army?
Yes.
I knew. As soon as I saw you in that position, I knew. Do you remember me, the water card corporal?
No.
I remember you. Sit down. I'll bring your memory back. Do you remember... Move up a bit, Charlie.
Hey.
You pushed me then.
Do you remember Ginger Dunn?
Ginger Dunn, the cook? The old whistle expert? Oh, what are you doing?
Flipping them in the fat. That's what Ginger used to do with the wristholes.
Somebody, I've often wondered what he used to do with the wristholes.
Poor old Ginger. We'll drink to the memory of Ginger Dunn.
A lovely thought. I'm with you there, pal. I think I am, right?
To Ginger.
Ginger. He'll drink first.
Do you remember Ookie Walker?
Ookie Walker? There's Charlie and me yet to do Ginger Dunn, if you don't mind.
Where's yours?
It's underneath yours, if we can get to it.
Ookie's had it.
Ookie's had it? I thought it was him that had it.
We'll drink to the memory of Ookie Walker.
Who will?
We will.
Oh, no, you'll have none left for yourself if we do.
Ookie Walker.
Ookie Walker. We'll be in the first 3, don't worry.
And Ginger Dunn.
You've done Ginger Dunn. Let me do a bit of remembering. Do you remember the Dublin fuse of the ears? Here's still a lot of them.
I was in London, and somebody walked over to me and said, do you know Rusholme's gone? I said, what? You're joking. No, he said. It closed last weekend. I said, good God. And what's happened? They said, no, we don't know. It's just ceased to function as a film studio. Everybody's got their cards, and we'll never go back there again. Now, that was a terrible body blow. I felt very, very sad, and everyone else did. I spoke to a lot of the staff that had been in the studio. I met them over the years, and they were heartbroken, because nothing ever replaced it.
Blakeley was 65 when the 1953 Mancunian production finished, and he was growing weary. Soon his sons and most of the staff had to find new jobs in other areas of the industry when Dickinson Road was sold to the BBC, who launched the first regional television operation in Britain there in July 1954. But Blakeley had retired fulfilled. He'd proven that films could be made for and by the community.
And I think you can trace the demise of various companies and the decline of companies like Mancunian with the rise of television. There's a curious linkage here in that television not only killed off the cinema, it also paid finally to variety. The variety circuits had continued in a rather shrunken fashion. Mancunian films had drawn upon the variety circuits for many of its stars.
Where can I find them now? Unless you find them on film. Do you know that there isn't one? Ben and I did a lot of television from 1952 onwards to 1958, 59. We did a hell of a lot of television. There isn't one tape of Ben and I of any television station. All gone. Because they weren't using tape then. You did them live. So it has to be good that somebody like John Blakeley put them down for future generations to see. I don't think anybody went to see the John Blakeley comedies in the West End because they never were shown in the West End of London. They were made for a particular audience. Is it working class? I wouldn't know, but I suppose they were made for the working class audiences. The people that had seen Jimmy James on the theatre, there's people that had seen Norman Evans in the theatre.
And if you see the films in that kind of context, and you see them and think about, or maybe read about and find out about, the community, the actual people who went to see them, their lifestyle, their expectations, what they wanted out of life, what they were used to seeing, what to them was a good night out, what was a relief from the drudgery, from the hardship, from 5 years of the most bloody awful war we've ever had. Then the films take on an entirely different characteristic. You're not just looking at some grotesque person in drag. I mean, what you're actually looking at is a whole lifestyle of humour of a whole area of working class people who quite soon won't exist anymore.
We see a record then of a vanished, warm, active communal life in many of these films. The sense of community and place, which Formby and Randall very much represented, that northern consciousness, that northern identity, was broken up in the 1960s, essentially by what I regard as thoroughly ill-conceived policies of redevelopment and planning and the destruction of city centres, the uprooting of entire communities, moving people to the outskirts of cities, many of whose developments have been absolutely disastrous, followed on from the destruction of variety, from the destruction of the cinema, the destruction also of the railways, the destruction of many of the things which created and kept in being a sense of community. And that's something that we've sadly lost and something that we can recapture in looking at the entertainment forms of that era on film, particularly music hall. Music hall was essentially a communal activity. People sat in the same seats in the same place every week. They joined in the songs, they knew the performers, they loved the performers. And that was all part of the community. The pub, the music hall, the local cinema, all these have been swept away.